live that we are going to be doing, and this one is a special one, not only for me, but I think for all Charles Leclerc fans everywhere. I I don't even know what to say. I am beyond happy for Charles, for Ferrari, but for Charles especially. I, as you know, if you do follow my channel, I made a video just a couple days ago about how I do hope he is able to break the curse that he has had at Monaco so far. And he did it, The whole weekend he was dominant, and you could see how much it means to him. I thought he had tears almost. You could feel the emotion in his voice when he was getting out of that car on his not reconnaissance lap, on his cool down lap. You could just feel how much this victory truly meant to him and for him. You know how much he won this one. It's a home race for him. This is the closest thing he can get to a championship right now, the feeling of a championship. It is truly the crown jewel of Formula One, and he deserves it. Congratulations, Charles. Congratulations, Ferrari. Hopefully, the curse is broken forever now, and this is just the first of many, many more to come. Now, we'll talk about Charles Leclerc a little bit later. There's not too much, but quite a bit to touch on for this race. And before anything else, I would like to go over some of the qualifying positions that we had. Now, especially the top drivers. So obviously we had Leclerc qualifying in first. As we know, he was rapid the entire weekend. Again, I don't want to say he deserves it, but he does deserve it because he was rapid all weekend. And then right behind him, we had Oscar Piastri in the McLaren and Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari coming into third, followed by, again, Lando Norris in the McLaren. So our top four was a split essentially between the Ferraris and the McLarens. And it's strange having a qualifying or any type of session for that matter where we don't see Max Verstappen at the top or close to the top, because we've gotten so used to it that it's refreshing in a way to not see him there. Because like I said, the victory in Australia was well merited. I mean, Sainz drove phenomenally. Ferrari was in a position. Hello, Alex. Thank you. I know. He did it. What I was saying, in Australia, Sainz was in a position to pick up the pieces from Max's failure. But the thing about this race was that Leclerc did it on his own from the beginning, from the get-go. He was the quickest through FP2, FP3, through qualifying, and he did not disappoint. Yes, I mean, I like to say I called it, although every year I'm hoping for the exact same thing. But this year I truly believed it. It was also my birthday a couple days ago, so I had people over today for the race as well, celebrating my birthday / the race. So I think this is also one of the best presents I could have gotten for my birthday. That red flag, yes, so we do have to definitely talk about that. At the beginning of the race, there was a huge incident between Perez and the two Haas cars. I honestly, in a way, I was happy that it happened. Thank you for the happy birthday. I was happy that the red flag happened in a sense because obviously once we see that all the drivers are okay, everybody's safe, everybody's out of the car and all that, Piastri was very close to Leclerc going into sector 2, and it seemed like he might have made a lunge at some point, probably not on the very first lap, but he started very well too, and it was a pretty big shunt for Perez. I mean, we got to see a lot of replays of that specific incident, right? Because we had almost half an hour, however long they were cleaning the track for. And when we saw that, originally we thought that, okay, for sure this is Magnussen's fault. We know he's a bit of a wild card. He goes for it. He doesn't really care. But at the same time, after we watched the replay over and over and over, you could see that Perez also slightly, in a way, squeezes Magnussen towards the right side going up the hill, because he might have thought that Hülkenberg was closer on the left side, although that wasn't the case. It's unfortunate for Perez, although I don't think he would have been able to do too much from his starting position. And unfortunate for the two Haas cars, who already had a very tough weekend. I mean, they were starting in the pit lane, both of them, because of some infringement. Some infringement on the wing, which I also mentioned yesterday on Twitter, that I think is absolutely crazy in 2024 to be able to to have something like that happen when you have so many specialists, so many engineers, so many points of data and analysts and whatever you want to call it looking over your cars and making sure that everything's right. And they qualified pretty well too before they got these penalties. I think Hulkenberg qualified in what was it in 12th technically, and I don't remember Magnussen qualified. I think it was 14th. Not something they liked. Maybe they would have gotten to the points. Not sure, but that accident, which I do agree, racing incident, I would say maybe 10% Magnussen, 10% Perez, and racing incident 80%. So I would categorize it as an 80%. I think they were quick to consider a racing incident, which it turns out that it was the right call, or at least from my point of view, it was the right call. It's unfortunate because it's a racing incident that cost both of those teams a lot of money, and we're talking millions and millions of dollars here for both of those teams. Definitely has more of a weight on the Haas team, but at the same time, Perez is in a position where he has to be doing better in a very strange way. Maybe the fact that he didn't get to finish this race and didn't get to not do anything in this race might somehow help his stock, because if he's finishing in P18 and Verstappen's up there finishing in P6, although the car isn't as good as we're used to seeing, this is still a pretty big discrepancy between the drivers. When we first saw it on the TV, on the replay, it was a very nasty accident. So we were just obviously wanted to make sure that he was getting out of the car, because when you first saw the car, you didn't see any of the front tires and the back tire was out. So it's basically just the monopost. And that just shows how safe and how sturdy these cars actually are today in 2024, which obviously we're very happy to see, because, we want the safety to be there and we want to be upgrading the safety as much as possible. But yeah, it was a big shunt. And on the first lap, we also had the incident from Carlos Sainz, who had a puncture after his slight tap with Oscar Piastri. We thought originally for sure that this meant that he would be at the back of the grid on the restart. Luckily for Ferrari and for Carlos in this case, they decided to reinstate him up into P3, so he would be on the restart for the race in P3. I think he caught a very lucky break there, because they could have easily argued that technically his position was higher up, or further down, should I say, because the other cars were higher up. Hi Barkin, welcome to the chat. It was an unlucky weekend for Perez overall, but I think he also just needs to be qualifying better, especially in the car he has, and especially given that Max is his direct comparison. Another incident we had on the first lap, we had a lot of incidents on the first lap, was basically everything that happened in this race mostly happened on the first lap. One of the incidents was the Ocon and Gasly incident. Now, I don't know what happened behind the scenes. Everybody's going off on Ocon for his involvement. Obviously, he had to retire the car. We know that there's basically a huge civil war between those two drivers. The car is not great. They did manage to score points. Gasly did get a point today. The car is not great. The team chemistry definitely isn't good. I mean, we all knew they weren't going to be a good team chemistry from the start. I don't know why they even thought this would be a good idea. But you can see that those two drivers are more focused with their teammate than with the actual racing part of the races themselves. So we are definitely, I'm sure, going to see much more of these incidents in the future. The team principal has come out, Alpine has come out and said there will be consequences for Esteban going forward. I mean, I'm curious to see what this is, because he got knocked, so he wasn't able to go on the race. He got a 10-second penalty, which he'll have to serve probably in the form of a grid penalty for next race. And on top of that, he also has to get some type of consequences from the team. So I don't know exactly what this is going to mean. I think Gasly said after the race that Ocon went directly against team instructions. So maybe they were instructed not to try to overtake each other, which is, I mean, a fair call, given that it's Monaco. And even if you are going to do it, what was he trying? Like, I don't understand what the purpose of that move there was. It wasn't a fast move or an aggressive move. It was just a dumb move, in my opinion. That was no chance that was going to bring him much. But he went for it at the end of the day, and there's not much you can say. I think looking back on it, he'll probably regret it, especially if this does come with more consequences for him and for the team. But like you say as well, Alex, that was a bad one. I mean, his car, he flew up. Nobody thought that that little contact would get the car that high off the ground. And again, it completely destroyed his race. So I don't know how he thought that was a good idea. Honestly, besides those couple incidents, of course, we also had Piastri who had some damage after that first turn incident with Sainz. I'm not sure if there was actually too much damage or this was just some sort of, I don't want to say encouragement to him, but if he's encouraged that the car is doing well, even though it supposedly has damage, then I'm sure that he would be thinking that, hey, maybe we can actually catch the Ferraris up ahead, or in this case, the Ferrari, because there's one Ferrari ahead of Piastri. But besides these incidents on the first lap, we didn't really have too much action for the rest of the race. On the restart, again, it was very important. We were hoping and holding our breath to make sure that once again, Leclerc gets a solid start off the line, because that's very important to make sure you're leading into turn one. He managed to do that again. He had a great reaction time. Unfortunately, Piastri also had a great reaction time, because as the race began, obviously the best strategy for Ferrari would have been to have Carlos Sainz overtake Piastri right at the beginning so that he would be able to, I know it sounds strange, but to support Leclerc and protect Leclerc from anything coming from behind, so hold off the McLarens, because it's very difficult. And we saw this again today. I mean, if it wasn't for the narrative and the storyline of Charles Leclerc finally winning his first race in Monaco, it's a rather boring race. Not much happens for the majority of the race, and it's a very long race. I mean, 78 laps of cars going around, and Leclerc wasn't pushing at all. He was trying to dictate the pace. So at the beginning, I was still on edge because I would see Piastri so close, but then Leclerc would bring it up to maybe 1 second, maybe 1.5 seconds, then it would drop down to 4/10, so it just kept swinging back and forth. And this was worrisome at first because we thought generally the Ferraris weren't as quick as McLarens on the long term, but it turned out that he was truly just managing. And on top of that, if you have these rules where, so with a red flag, you can switch the tires, that's fine. But then there's no pit stop. So these top 4 front runners, top 5, because I think Russell as well, he didn't pit. None of these cars entered the pits. So we didn't even get the opportunity. Again, for this race, I'm very happy that there was no chance for Ferrari to mess anything up. I mean, that was crucial, right? No pit stops, no chance at all. But overall, in general, there's no pit stop, so there's no chance for any teams to mess anything up. So at a circuit like Monaco, where it's already so difficult to overtake, and you can argue that maybe through pit stops and different strategies you can overtake, we didn't even get to see any of that. We had a couple drivers pit when they had a gap larger than 19 seconds just to catch up to the car that was previously ahead of them, and this didn't change absolutely anything in the long run. That's something maybe they'll want to look into, because I know they like having this race here in Monaco and they want to continue having it for a long time, but there really is no way that you can argue this is an entertaining race, because the most entertaining part about this weekend is undoubtedly Saturday, the qualifying session. This is when everything happens. This is when basically the most important part of the work gets done. I mean, we've seen time and time again that Leclerc has had unfortunate luck, to say it like that, and he has had failures on Sunday, although he had done a great job on Saturday. But realistically, if you just do what you have to do on Saturday, then Sunday becomes a lot easier for you. And I think I read a stat somewhere that this was the first Grand Prix where the top 10 grid drivers remained the exact same from where they qualified. So there was absolutely no changes between the top 10 drivers. Now, can you just take that in for a second? Like, that's a pretty boring race. I think the first overtake we saw was Bottas after he had fresh tires, and that might have already been on like lap 35, 45. I don't even remember, but it was late on in the race. Now, let's see what the chat is saying. Alex, you're saying that Ocon races the hardest against his own teammates than against anyone else. That is absolutely true. And honestly, that might be one of the next videos I'm planning on doing, is about the civil war that is brewing over there. And I see you have another one that you're helping a friend move, so you've got to go. Thank you for the birthday wishes. Thank you for the right call. I'll see you on the next live and on the next video. I do appreciate you dropping in to say hi. All the best and good luck with the moving process. But yes, as Alex mentioned, I did technically call this win, although like I said, I do call it every year. I do hope Leclerc can win. But this year it felt different. He had a different attitude towards the race itself, different attitude towards coming into the weekend. He said he'd be satisfied with a win, not with a podium. And he seemed much calmer overall, much more composed going forward. He was on top of it. And you could see that throughout the practice sessions, throughout the qualifying session, he didn't look stressed at all the way he might other times. This was really what we wanted to see from him. We knew that obviously he wanted to get the win, and that is exactly what happened. The post-race interviews, the celebrations with Prince Albert as well, the jumping in the marina afterwards, it's truly, I truly do believe it's a dream come true for him. Now, if you did enjoy the call that I made, right, and who knows, maybe I'll make another great call. So, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my channel because like I say in all my videos, I do post Formula 1 content weekly. I try to do one of these lives after each race. It may be a little later, like this one, maybe a little earlier sometimes, but either way, it really helps me out if you do subscribe. And if you enjoy the content, hey, it's free to do, you know, and it helps me out. You can always unsubscribe later if you do not want to say subscribe anymore. But please subscribe to the channel. So, like I said, boring race overall. The next race is one that I consider a semi-home race. We'll be going to Canada, I think, in 2 weeks' time. And technically, it is a home race because I'm Canadian. I don't know what to say there. I haven't done any analysis. Maybe if I have time, I'll do a preview of the race because there's not much to talk about the Monaco Grand Prix. I mean, the best part for me and for all of you, I hope, is the Leclerc victory. We'll probably do some type of preview. I might start doing previews in the future as well for different races, so I might test that out for the Canadian Grand Prix. So like I said, if you do want to see that, I don't know if it'll be live or it'll be a full form video. Either way, subscribe to the channel so you'll be notified when I do post that. If you haven't already, please watch my latest video, which is the can Charles Leclerc break his Monaco curse in 2024? Now, we know the answer is yes, but that video was made before he broke the curse. And there you can also see why we even call it a curse. Everybody talks about it being a curse because there's been so many instances when he's been on the opposite end of the stick. Today, he did what he had to do. He was victorious. Thank you guys for watching this quick little post-race discussion. Forza Ferrari, you know, couldn't be happier. Thank you guys and see you next time. Bye.